Hello, mathematicians, and welcome to another lesson. Today we're talking about congruent chords. This is lesson 8.2b. This is the second part of lesson 8.2. The first part was about arcs and central angles. So you haven't checked that video out, make sure you do so. I'll put the link in the description so you guys can go watch it after this one. So let's go over our objective. I can use properties of congruent chords to find missing values. Now remember that the word congruent means same. They're the exact same. So we have two chords that are the exact same inside of a circle. Now when that happens, we have some special properties going on. If two chords are congruent, then their corresponding arcs are also congruent. So in this case, because segment AC is congruent to segment BD, then that means that arc AC is congruent to arc BD. Oops. That should be an arc symbol. Now, don't get this confused. This doesn't mean that their lengths are the same. So the length of AC isn't the same as the length of arc AC, or that the length of chord BD is the same as arc BD. That's not what this means. This means that if the two chords are congruent to each other, then their corresponding arcs are congruent to each other. All right? Don't get that confused. Now we can use this property for some applications where we're finding missing values. For example, take a look at this problem. Chords ST and RQ are congruent. So we know that these two chords are congruent. We have the bar, the tick mark that shows us. We need to find the value of X. So since we know that the two chords are congruent, this chord right here and this chord right here, then that tells us that their corresponding arcs are also congruent. This arc and this arc. So because those arcs are congruent, then we know that this measure has to be the same as this measure. And if these two measures are the same, then they are equal. And since they're equal, we can write it out this way in an equation format. 7x plus 9 equals 4x plus 24. So now we can solve this equation to find the value of x, which is what they want us to find in this case. So I'm going to start with the variables. Now I notice that I do have variables on both sides, so I want to cancel one of these out. And since 4 is less than 7, I'm going to cancel out the 4. 4x up here is positive, so I change it to a negative so they can cancel out. Now I'm also going to subtract 4x from this side so that my equation stays balanced. So that gives me 3x plus 9. And over here, 4x is gone, so I'm left with 24. Now, since I have all the x's on one side now, I'm going to cancel out the constant. I'm going to cancel out this plus 9. And again, since it's plus 9, then I'm going to subtract 9. And I do that to both sides to keep the equation balanced. And so that gives me 3x equals 15. So now that I have 3x, 3 times x. So to cancel out times, I divide. And I divide both sides. This cancels out, and I'm left with just x. 15 divided by 3 gives me 5. And that is my answer. X equals 5. Let's take a look at one more example. Chords JK and LM are congruent. What is the measure of arc JK? So now I'm looking for the measure of this arc. But since these two chords are congruent, then I know that these two arcs must also be congruent since they correspond to the congruent chords, which means I can set up my problem just like I did earlier. This arc is equal to this arc. So I have 8x plus 6 equals 6x plus 24. And I draw my line down the center, through the center of the equal sign, and I'm going to start solving. So I'm going to start with my variables. I have 8x, I have 6x. I'm going to cancel out 6x since it's the smaller one. I subtract it from both sides. This cancels out. And over here, I'm left with 2x plus 6. And over here, I have 24. So now I have all of my x's over here. So I want to get rid of the constant. So this plus 6, I subtract 6 from both sides. This cancels out and I'm left with 2x. 24 minus 6 is 18. And now 2x, 2 times x. So to cancel out times, I divide by 2 to cancel that out. And I divide by 2 to balance it. And so I end up with x equals 9. Now this isn't the answer though, because they're asking us for the measure of arc JK. So we have one more step here. Now we need to take our x and plug it back in to our expression for the measure of this arc. So I'm going to write out my expression, 8x plus 6, and I know that I need to substitute 9 for x. So I'm going to put it in parentheses. I'm going to go ahead and put that in the calculator. 8 times 9 plus 6, and we get 78. So the measure, and I'll write it out in math terms here, the measure of arc JK is equal to 78 degrees. All right, and that's it. So like I said, if you haven't checked out the first part of this lesson, please go do so. And if you have questions, reach out to us, and I'll see you guys later. Until next time, take care.